Welcome to the New Hire Orientation course at CFF College. The course is divided into two sections. The first section is a state safety requirement, adapted to our particular environment. California Family Fitness President Randy Carr will lead you through this section and give you specific examples of how this applies at CFF. There's lots to learn. You can go fast or slow and stop any time. We'll remember where you are when you log in again. And, of course, there'll be a test. So, good luck.
In the state of California, there's a governing body called Cal-OSHA. How many of you have heard of OSHA before? Okay. So OSHA's primary responsibility is to create safety in the workplace. OSHA requires all businesses in the state to have in place something called an IIPP, which stands for an Injury Illness Prevention Program. This binder is the IIPP. I'm going to go through this section by section. I'm going to call out a few specifics that I want to draw your attention to. When you were hired, in your blue folder that you were given, in there is a safety rule acknowledgement form. That form, once you reviewed this binder personally, not just for me going over this in class, you'll need to fill that out, give it to your manager, and then it is tracked in your file. So once I go over this, when you get back to your club, I want you to go to your manager, tell them I'm on the clock, I need to review the IIPP.
The IIPP is kept in the safety crisis binder. This binder is kept behind the front desk at all times.
Grab it at your location, sit down at a sales desk or at a table, review it, and then once you've gone through everything, sign the acknowledgement and turn it into your manager. The IIPP is broken up into 8 sections. Section number 1 is the program itself. It's an explanation of what it is and why we have it. Section 2 is an emergency action plan, so what to do as an employee if you have to evacuate the building or handle an emergency. Section 3 is the hazardous communication program, so what to do when you're dealing with chemicals. Section 4 is facility audits. We audit the facilities and the clubs on a consistent basis. Section 5 is employee injury information. So if you get hurt on the job, what the process is and how we go about making sure that you're okay. Section 6 is incident reports. These are non-employee related incidents or accidents. And then finally, Section 7 and 8 are additional training information and forms, examples, and memos. It's more of an archive. It's very important that we are prepared to deal with any type of situation that could come up in the club. One of the conditions of your employment, along with some of these classes that you have to take, and some of you that are either Group X or trainers have this requirement as well, is you need to be CPR certified. Regardless if you're an instructor or not, we require all employees in the clubs to be both CPR and AED certified. An AED is an auto external defibrillator. So what it does is if somebody's heart is not pumping, you'll hook them up to a machine. It's about the size of a Sony PlayStation. It'll basically regulate through an electrode of whether the heart is moving or not, and it will deliver a shock to restart their heart. In the state of California, a law was passed that as of January of 2007, all health clubs had to have an AED on their premise. We've had AEDs in our club since 2005, so we take it very serious, and they show that if you can get somebody on an AED within a minute to 2 minutes, you have an 80% chance of saving their life versus just using CPR only. So we have AEDs in all of the clubs. If you're not familiar with where they are, they're on a big white cabinet. If you have 2 floors, you have 2 AEDs. If you're a bigger club, you'll have 2, even if it's a single floor facility, and the smaller clubs will have 1. We try to put them in high traffic areas where they're easy to get to. So for CPR and AED certifications, you have a couple of options. Option number 1, you can go anywhere that you want. Most hospitals have an education department, or you can go to American Red Cross, American Heart Association, Sutter, Mercy, Kaiser, all have education departments where you can get certified. Because we require it as a condition of your employment, we do contract with 2 outside vendors that come here to teach CPR and AED. It's a 2-year certification. They go over adult, child, and infant CPR and AED. It's about a 6-hour class. You are required to have this within 60 days of your date of hire. If you don't have it within 60 days, technically they'll pull you off the schedule. So it's very important to make sure that you are CPR and AED certified. We have had to use AEDs in the clubs. In the last 2 years, we've had 3 deaths in the clubs. We had a death at Elk Grove, we had a death at Natomas, and we had a death at Folsom. The death at Natomas happened 3 days after the club opened. There was a 44-year-old male that was playing basketball, dropped in the middle of a basketball game and had a heart attack. The staff did use the AED. It did deliver a shock. They did perform CPR. And unfortunately, they kept him alive until EMS showed up, but they weren't able to save him on the way to the hospital. So I don't want to freak everybody out, but in the physical environment that we're in, especially if you're an instructor and you're teaching classes, you're on the workout floor, people do have problems sometimes. So it's very important to have these skills, especially in our environment. The two other ones, they did hook them up to an AED, but at the point when they were found, they were out in their cars in the parking lot. They got done working out, overexerted themselves, went into their cars to kind of catch their breath and rest, and they both passed away in the parking lot. There was nothing that we could do, but staff did respond, started CPR, hooked them up to the AED, and to no avail, they weren't able to be saved. So it could come into some play while you're working at the club that you may have to put this into action. So please make sure that you get certified. Once you've been an employee of ours for a minimum of a year, the cost to re-cert is only $10. And we subsidize the rest of it. The certification is yours, it's not mine. So basically, once you get it, we just want a copy of your card, just like if you already had it, we put it in your file, and then it's good with you whether you're with CFF or not. Section 1, it has a general statement of policy. It states that to our employees, we as management have a direct responsibility in providing all reasonable safeguards for employee health and safety. We also have a responsibility to direct and ensure that employees perform their assigned task in a safe working manner. Most of all, we have a responsibility to develop safety awareness in our people. Then it goes over objectives of the program itself, and it states that it's the objective of CFF to implement an effective illness and injury prevention program in order to minimize injury and suffering to employees, promote maximum efficiency of operations throughout the company, and to conserve expenses associated with unsafe working conditions and practices. So it goes over a lot of detail. Then it goes over responsibility for safety. So what management's responsibility is, supervisors, employees, it goes over safety inspection, hazard abatement procedure, accident investigation, so on and so forth. So in this section, I mainly want you to draw your attention to the beginning piece. I do want you to kind of go through it. It's fairly boilerplate. It kind of covers the gamut. But for the most part, Section 1 just explains what the program is and why we have it in place. Section 2 is the Emergency Action Plan. So it states as an overview of the EAP, California Family Fitness has designed a procedural program for the handling and control of an unexpected crisis or any other emergency. The expectation is that in the unlikely event of an emergency, CFF staff has the training and confidence to identify emergencies and coordinate an appropriate response. This will be accomplished by, and then it has a couple of bullets. It goes right to evacuation procedures, which is something that you will deal with, and I'll give a couple of examples. So it states in the beginning that in the event of an uncontrollable fire, earthquake, explosion, chemical leak, or any other emergency, it may be necessary to quickly evacuate the building in a safe and orderly manner. Bomb threats and hostage situations will be forwarded to law enforcement by calling 911. The evacuation procedures to be followed by all personnel under these circumstances shall be. There's 11 steps on what you're supposed to do to evacuate the building. The main step that I want to draw your attention to is step number 4. And it states that each department is responsible for clearing their work area of people. So for example, the first one says childcare staff. Childcare are to retrieve the check-in clipboard and calmly escort the children out single file holding hands. Ensure bathrooms and playscapes are clear. A staff member is to be on each end of the line. The last staff member shall do a head count, take the children and exit the building through the safest exit to the established meeting area. Children are to be released to parent, guardian, and EMS only. That's just what childcare is supposed to do, okay? Then there's front desk staff, instructors or trainers, on-duty supervisors, facility managers, and then membership staff. The average square footage of our facilities is 38,000 square feet. So with facilities that large, it takes everyone on staff at any given time to get everybody out of the building. Because we are a family facility and we have a lot of kids running around, a lot of false alarms will happen. Johnny will pull the pull station and set the alarm off. If I go back 5 years ago, if we knew it was a false alarm and the fire department called, before response, we would say false alarm. They would say, okay. We would reset this panel and the pull station ourselves. They don't do that anymore. If a fire alarm gets pulled, you have to evacuate the building. They want to see everybody out front. When they pull up, they will go in. They will actually walk the facility, assess that it's okay. They'll reset the panel and the pull stations themselves. Now, I don't know what it is, but when a fire alarm goes off, the members don't acknowledge it. They just keep on working out. So you will, unfortunately, have to go up and say, politely and professionally, ma'am or sir, I need you to get off your piece of equipment and please exit the building. In certain circumstances, we've had to get a little more direct than that, but for whatever reason, they don't feel it pertains to them. But the problem is that if you don't, and the fire department shows up, it makes it worse for the rest of the members and us, because they get upset of why is there still somebody in the building. So if you let them know that the easiest way is if you exit now, it's going to be a lot quicker getting back in once the fire department gets here. But if you're still in here, it's going to cause more issue, and generally you can get everybody out. And it will take a good 5 to 10 minutes to get everybody out, because you need to check showers, locker rooms, steam rooms, sauna, swimming pool areas, every corner of the club to make sure that everyone, both members and staff, are out of the building. You will have regular club meetings every 3 months, and during those meetings we will do evacuation drills to make sure that everybody is aware of where to go. But pretty much as long as you can get out of the building and out to a common parking lot, you should be fine. Section 3, hazardous communication program. So we've talked a lot about cleaning and how important cleanliness is, especially in our environment. And the only way to truly keep the clubs clean and sanitary is by using chemicals. Now, all chemicals that we use, we try to use very neutral cleaners, nothing that's harmful to you as employees or the members, but it is a common way to keep things clean. Now, the janitorial staff will use things that are a little more heavy duty in the showers, in the locker rooms, but for the most part, you're going to use things like glass cleaner, all-purpose cleaner, stuff for the floors. This section will go over a couple different things. It does state at the beginning that CFF has developed a hazardous communication program to ensure that our employees stay safe and healthy. Our hazardous communication program provides information about the hazardous materials present in the workplace. Communication of these materials is done through employee training, such as this, including we'll do revisions of this throughout your employment at club meetings, proper container labeling, and MSDS sheets. And I'll explain a little bit about those in just a second. So the first section goes over chemical handling and procedures. About 95% of all chemicals that we use are distributed by squirt bottles, okay? You apply it to the surface, the equipment, whatever it may be, and then you wipe it off. Yes, we use mop buckets and some other things, but majority of what you're going to come in contact with are squirt bottles. Now, if I went to any given club right now, a big club like Folsom, Elk Grove, Rockland, and I went throughout the workout floor, janitorial closets, front desk, child care, there'd probably be about 40 bottles in use throughout the facility. If OSHA were to come in and do an inspection, which they're unannounced, they're not scheduled, and they were to find bottles that were unlabeled, it's a minimum of a $2,000 fine per bottle. So if you take 2,000 times 40, we're looking at $80,000. And I don't care how big of a company you may be, no one wants to pay fines to OSHA for those reasons. So container labeling is extremely important. Section 2 talks about that. It says the policy that before use, each container of hazardous material must possess a label with the following information: the name of the contents, appropriate hazard warnings, and the name and the address of the manufacturer. Now, if you know that information off the top of your head, good for you, but most people wouldn't know all that information. So any chemicals that we buy from our janitorial supply company, we are given manufacturer labels. They're required to produce them for anything that we purchase. So there's a couple rules of thumb. One, any bottle you come into contact with must have a label. If it doesn't, tag, you're now it. It is your responsibility to do two things. One, notify your manager that you came across a bottle that had no label on it, and two, to get a label on it. If you know what's in the bottle, it's very clear, meaning that it's blue for glass cleaner, it's green or yellow for a neutral cleaner, then get the appropriate label on there. If you're not sure what's in there, you do one of two things. Either dump it out, completely rinse it until the overflow is clear water with no bubbles, put what you need in there and put a label on it, or I would rather you throw the bottle away because it could be hazardous to mix two chemicals. So rule of thumb is only put in there what you know goes in there. If not, then either rinse it out or toss it and get a new one. Now, I don't want to create panic and have the manager saying that I told everybody to go throw all the squirt bottles away, but I want to make sure that we're being safe. We're required by OSHA to have MSDS sheets on file at each club for any chemicals that are in use. Like I said, most of the chemicals that you're going to come into contact with are, one, highly diluted, as low as a 1:6 ratio, which means 1 part chemical to 6 parts water, as high as 1 to 250, which is 1 part chemical to 250 parts water. But you need to make sure that, one, when you're filling a bottle, you're always filling it from the command center, which in all janitorial supply closets, there's a thing on the wall that has the concentrate of the chemical in there, and it automatically mixes with water to give you the right dilution rate. You should never fill a bottle with concentrate. You're not a bartender trying to figure out what the right mixture is. You want to use it from the command center. It does it automatically. So you should never be popping the lid off of a concentrate and just filling up a bottle. Now, if for whatever reason you or a member were to come into contact with one of the chemicals and had a reaction, the MSDS sheets would come into play. We're required to have all MSDS sheets on file. In the binder, you will find the section for MSDS sheets, and they're all by tab in alphabetical order, so they're easy to find. I'll give you an example of when you would use this. So let's say you're in childcare and you're cleaning off a window, so you're using glass cleaner. And Tommy runs up and asks you to help tie his shoe. So you set the bottle down, you turn around and help Tommy, you tie his shoe, and then you get back up to grab your bottle, and Johnny is drinking it. Okay. First of all, you're going to grab the bottle from Johnny. Secondly, you're going to call 911 and poison control. Most likely, they're going to have EMS come out, and they're going to take Johnny to a hospital. What they're going to want to know is, what did Johnny just drink? That's what the MSDS sheet is for. So when you review the binder, I don't want you to go through all of them, but look at one MSDS sheet just for your own knowledge. It explains what the name of it is, what's in it, what stabilizes it, what counteracts it, all of the different properties that a physician would need to know to treat Johnny or in turn yourself. If you got something on your skin or in your eyes or whatever the situation is, that's what those are for. Now also, if you come across a chemical that you've never seen before, it's also your responsibility to ensure that we have an MSDS sheet on file. I don't have a problem if you talk to your manager and say, hey, we just got 974X cleaner, or whatever the heck it is. Do we have an MSDS sheet on file? Because we constantly are auditing and updating this. We don't really take on too many new chemicals periodically, but every once in a while we'll get something that we need to make sure we have the sheet for. Section 4. Facility safety audits. This just goes over our inspections, the frequency, compliance, how they're scored. It even has a copy of the actual sheets that are used. We have a safety security director, and he or she does audits throughout the facilities on a regular basis, not only weekly, but does a monthly walkthrough. And they're looking at things like trip hazards, electrical hazards, chemical things. They also do quarterly inspections with our insurance company. So this section just goes over the criteria and what exactly they're looking for, but the whole purpose of that is to make sure that the clubs are as safe as they can be, not only for our members, but for you as employees as well. Section 5 is employee injury reporting procedures. So this is what to do if you get injured on the job. So at the very top of the page, it says steps to report a work-related injury. It goes over who our workman's comp carrier is, their address, our policy number, a 1-800 number. Step 1, it says evaluate and seek treatment. So first and foremost, if you get hurt on the job, you need to tell your manager, okay? There are many employees, we've already talked about, the average size of a club and how many employees are working at any given time. There's no way that we can know that you were injured on the job unless you tell someone. Now, the biggest mistake that is made is that maybe you have a reoccurring injury, maybe it's, seemed like it was trivial, you twisted your ankle, you bent your knee wrong, whatever it may be, and you figure, oh, I'll be okay. But then the next morning, you wake up and you can't get out of bed because your knee is the size of a softball. You call the manager and tell them, hey, I can't come into work today because my knee is swollen, I gotta go see the doctor. And they inquire, well, where did that happen? Did it happen at work or when you're off? No, it happened yesterday when I was re-racking weights on the free weight floor. The problem is that we would have rather have known that when it happened, because either one, maybe we would have sent you to be seen, or two, we'd at least like to know what's going on. So regardless of how bad the injury may be, it may be very minor or maybe very severe, you need to let a manager know immediately. There's a form in here that's called an employee's first report of injury. It basically goes over date, time, where in the club, specifically what happened. It's used to get all the information down because it's fresh on your mind. If nothing ever comes of it, no harm, no foul. But I'd rather have documentation versus nothing at all. Now, if you are injured, sprain, strain, break, cut, anything along those lines, our first priority is to get you seen and get you treatment. Your first visit will be to an urgent care facility. In the binder, there is address and phone numbers of all urgent care within the vicinity of the facility that you work at. Things like Med7, US Health Works, any kind of urgent care, there's a list in here. They do basic triage. They can treat a sprain, a strain, a couple of stitches, a small break. If there's anything above that, they will automatically refer you to the nearest hospital, especially if it's an emergency or something that they can't handle. But that's the first step. So step one is evaluate and seek treatment. Step two is notify HR. So your manager's responsibility is to let HR know immediately that you were injured on the job and you're going to go seek treatment. And then step three, which is in a couple of steps, employee to complete forms, which we talked about, the employee's first report of injury, and then employees claim for workman's comp benefits, and then a supervisor form that they'll fill out on the situation, and then step four is to submit all those forms. Now, I already mentioned that at the beginning of this, it states who our carrier is, our policy number. They will not take your call. You need to go through HR because they basically have to do a process to make sure that you're taken care of. But first and foremost, we want to get you seen and treatment immediately. This section only has a couple of pages. It's pretty straightforward, but my best recommendation always is tell somebody that it happened before it gets worse to make sure that you're taken care of immediately. Section 6. This is non-employee accidents or injuries. This is pertaining to incident reports. We're going to go over the incident report itself, how to fill it out, and a couple reminders. 2/3 of all incident reports are created by child care. Kids are injury prone, they run into themselves and walls and each other. But incident reports are an invaluable way that we make sure that the clubs are safe. And so I'm going to go over the report itself. This is what it looks like. I do want to make sure that when you go back to your club, you actually grab one and look at it specifically, but I'm going to give you the basics, and then I'm going to give you a few reminders. So in the top right-hand corner, it states incident number. Now the incident report number is created by a couple of different things. First is your club number and a 6-digit date. So for example, if an incident happened today at Orangeville, the incident report number would be their club number, which is 4390, and it would be the date of the incident, 092709, okay? So the incident report number will be 4390-092709, okay? There's some other signifiers that would go along with this. There's a letter, depending upon what report it is of the day. There's a decimal point and a number, depending upon how many pages there are for that specific report. Why do we have that? The reason being is all incident reports are scanned and archived onto disk. So in 2 years from now, if I wanted to find a report that happened in Orangeville on September 27th, 09, I can go and look for the report by that individual number. Does that make sense? Top of the report, it states that complete this report for all incidents or accidents. Please be as accurate and thorough as possible. It also states, do not mention insurance, admit responsibility, give member report to fill out, or give member a copy of this report. This report is for internal use only. So first of all, don't mention insurance. Yes, we are insured. That's not your responsibility. Admit responsibility. Whether it's our fault or theirs, it doesn't really matter. We just want to make sure that they're taken care of. Give member report to fill out, which means do not say, here, fill this out. You're going to basically, on a clipboard, fill it out while asking them questions. And finally, do not give them a report, a copy. The only people that are able to give a copy of an incident report are the corporate office. The GMs cannot even give a copy of a report. This is for internal documentation only. Next, it goes over the date of the incident, time, completed by, which would be you, Club address, your street address, because these are then forwarded on to our insurance company if it needs to go to that level, and they deal with health clubs all over the country. So you would put your street address and then manager's signature. Now, if a manager is not available when you're filling in an incident report, the next thing I want you to do once this is complete is I want you to put it somewhere that they will find it when they come in on their next shift, whether it's in their box, on their desk, whatever it may be. If you're filling an incident report and there is a manager on duty, you need to notify them that you're doing a report. We have management coverage in the clubs from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. So there generally should be a manager on duty. If for whatever the case may be, it's at 5 in the morning or midnight, you want to have this where they can find it the next time they come into the club. If not, have them sign it while they're there. Then you're going to go over member information, member's name, their age, member number. All members have a number that identify them in our database amongst all the other members. So their individual member number and phone number. Now, if this member is not a member, they're a guest, the next thing I want you to do is find their liability waiver at the front desk. We talked about that earlier. It's got their demographic information and they sign it. That will need to then either make a copy or take the original and attach it to this. If they're a member, the membership agreement that they sign when they join is a liability waiver within itself. It has a lot of the same information on it. So if they're not a member, they're a guest, find their waiver and attach it to this form. Witness information, the witness's name, their member number in the system, the relationship to the person involved, and phone number. This means, for example, if you're in the middle of a basketball game and a guy that's in the same game as you breaks their knee or their ankle, the relationship would be somebody that was playing basketball at the same time. So just in case we needed to ask questions or have another point of view of what happened, we want their information. Employee information, list all employees attending to the member, because a lot of times when you're doing an incident report, it's more than one employee involved. So you want to make sure that their name, position, and phone number are on there. Detailed information, detailed description of incidents. Please be sure to include the area of the facility in which the incident or action happened and the extent of the injury. Then was medical attention required, yes or no? If the injured person is a minor, was the parent notified, yes or no? What body part was affected? And then finally, was the injured person taken to a hospital, yes or no? And if yes, what hospital they were taken to and what time? Below is safety acknowledgement, which are preventative recommendations. Let's say if it was a trip hazard or something, what we're going to do to fix it and what corrective actions were taken. And then finally, follow-up information. All incident reports are followed up by a member of the management team within 12 to 24 hours, depending on the severity. If something's pretty small, like the little kid that got his finger hit by a hockey puck, that'll be a 24-hour thing. If it's something that's pretty severe, we're going to follow up within the same day. So, couple reminders. One is, if a manager's not present, what are you going to do with the report? Okay, you're going to leave it somewhere that they're going to find it when they come in next. If the person is not a member, what are you going to do? Find their waiver and attach it to the form. If you have to call 911 for any reason, whether it's vandalism, safety, security, whatever it may be, the general manager of the club needs to be notified. So I don't care if it's 5 o'clock in the morning or midnight, they need to be called. And then in turn, if you can't get a hold of them, you call the VP that oversees that facility, and then ultimately, if you can't get a hold of them, then I want to be called. If 911 is called for any reason, whether it's for EMS, fire, or police, somebody in upper management needs to be notified of what's going on. There's other processes that we may need to take care of. So generally, if you have a fire engine show up at your club, I am notified eventually within the chain of command, just to make sure that we're all aware. It does happen frequently. We have people that pass out, have low blood sugar, so on and so forth. But for the most part, if you have to call 911 for any reason, make sure the manager is available or is notified. If the GM isn't present and there's an assistant manager on duty, they know what to do. They will take it up the chain of command as well. Now, the difference between incident and accident, okay? Accident's pretty easy. It's physical injury. If somebody gets hurt, no matter how minor. Incident is, the best way I like you to think about it is anything that your manager would need to know about. So for example, you're working the front desk, somebody comes in and they're 90 days past due on their bill. And the note on the system says, don't give access. You let them know, look, I need to take partial payment. or I can't let you in, and they flip out and cuss you out and leave in a tirade. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be calling the club the next day. So this is to give us information of what happened while you were on shift. Because most of you are part-time, maybe you don't work every day, you're doing other things. This gives us your point of view of what took place. The other reminder is this needs to be factual. Not what you thought, not what you thought they said, not how they feel, but facts. Point blank, this is what happened, step 1, 2, and 3. So when we read through these, we want to know exactly what happened from a factual standpoint, not observations or assumptions. We do have security systems in all locations. There's cameras in most high traffic areas of the club. So generally the protocol immediately following an incident report is to go burn footage of what went down, whether it was that person at the front desk, somebody fell off a treadmill, somebody dropped a weight on their foot. We're going to go find that footage and we're going to burn it, and it's attached with this file because video shows a lot more than what somebody thought they saw. So it's very important to make sure that you get all the information down. We followed up with video, and it has really made us very safe, and we have a very good reputation within the industry of making sure that we're proactive and we're taking care of all situations that happen within the club. The last thing I want to leave you with pertaining to this is, when should you fill out a report? And my rule of thumb is this: if it ever enters your head or your gut, should I fill out a report, do it anyways. You can never over document. So if Johnny's running across the carpet in childcare and trips over his own shoelaces and skins his knee, and he gets up and he's got a pretty good raspberry, and you're thinking, God, do I need to fill out a report on that? I would say yes, because if it enters your mind, I'd rather you do it anyways, because you never know what can happen from that situation. That could get infected, the parent wasn't notified. As long as we have all the documentation to show that we are proactive, we're just trying to communicate and make sure that everybody is enjoying the club to the best of our ability. Spending a lot of time on this because it's very important. It's kept us very safe, and it is a regular part of how we do business because we're in a very physical environment like we've already discussed, and incidents happen every day. And especially if you're in childcare, you'll probably be doing a report a lot. Last two sections, sections 7 and 8, are mainly just for archived meeting agendas and any other reference material that you may need to review. So when you get back to your club, do me a favor, seek out this binder. Make sure that while you're on the clock, you grab a desk or a table, review the binder. If you have any questions, you can always ask your manager. Once you're done, fill out the safety rules acknowledgement that you have in your folder, turn that in, and it'll help to make your file complete.